No, you didn't write very often.
Little books.
Well, my letters...
Little books. Yeah, that guy is no beast. Your Monster is a romantic comedy horror film that was released in 2024. The story is about a girl named Laura whose life completely falls apart. She's diagnosed with cancer, her boyfriend dumps her, and she ends up losing an acting part that was specifically written for her. But then she meets the monster living in her closet and falls in love with him. To say I was excited about this movie is an understatement. Like, I didn't even wait till it was available for free on one of the streaming platforms I already pay for. I paid $6 to rent it on Amazon, which isn't a lot, but it's more than the $0 that I usually pay. I have an enduring fascination with rom-coms, especially when the premise is a little bit weird and crosses over into the supernatural, like Splash, where Tom Hanks falls in love with a mermaid, or the one monster rom-com that Hallmark gave us, where a woman makes and then subsequently falls in love with a golem. Monster love is definitely a popular erotica genre, which I don't read, but I appreciate that it exists. I mean, I read books, but like, I'm not gonna read about getting lost in the woods and becoming Bigfoot's mate, or like getting railed by an orc or whatever. So a movie about a sad girl who falls in love with the monster under her bed? Yes, perfect. I am here for it. It's like the concept of an old school Disney Channel comedy, but for girls who grew up and realized, like, hey, Goliath and Gargoyles was actually kinda hot. Okay, I know I said that I don't read monster erotica, and I don't, but I did find a book that is 100% an AU fanfic ripoff of Gargoyles, and I think that is hilarious. I know this movie has gotten Beauty and the Beast comparisons, at least that's how it was kind of described to me, and I think that's mostly because of the look of the monster, but I don't think that description is entirely accurate. I would liken this more to an old school DCOM. It's like a grown-up version of Don't Look Under the Bed. I was so here for the concept, but it ultimately let me down. And it wasn't a bad movie. I appreciate what it was trying to do, the same way I appreciate what monster erotica is trying to do, but it just ultimately didn't work. And I can't stop thinking about the pieces that didn't fit. So here we are. Let's discuss this movie in detail. There's gonna be a lot of talk about metaphor and themes and spoilers starting now. Okay, you were warned. Here we go. I will spoil one aspect of the ending right up front. Why am I sitting like this? Throughout the movie, I kept asking one single question. Is the monster real, or is it all in her head? Is he a flesh and blood supernatural creature, or is he an allegory representing your worst internal impulses and learning to love the most difficult parts of yourself? Pfft. Lame. Obviously, there's definitely an aspect of metaphor going into this movie. Some of the promotional materials refer to it as a story about falling in love with your inner rage. But would the movie still work as a straightforward monster love story? Or at the end of the movie, would they say the monster wasn't real? Or would they say the monster's not real, but then kind of be like, wink, wink, or is he? Ultimately, he's not real. It's pure allegory. He's all in her head. And it doesn't really work within the narrative. I need you to know that fact before we walk through the movie because it does impact how we view and examine and interpret some of the different scenes. As I mentioned, the movie centers around Laura, who was just diagnosed with some sort of lower abdominal cancer. And while she's recovering from surgery, her boyfriend Jacob dumps her.
I need time for me. I'm sorry.
The absolute worst. Literally my nightmare. They had been working on a musical together, with Laura doing a significant portion of the work, although it was all being done under Jacob's name, of course. And they basically crafted the lead role specifically for Laura. But while she's recovering from surgery, she discovers that auditions are happening for her role, and no one told her. Her friend Maisie picks her up from the hospital and takes her to her childhood home to recover, and then immediately ditches her.
Every minute of every day, I'm fucking here with you, okay? Ding! Laura, you are a hero and a champion. I'll call you tomorrow, okay?
It's a weird dynamic because her friend did technically help her, but not very much. And there's not really any kindness or empathy here. By the way, the house belongs to Laura's mom, who's apparently away most of the time. Convenient. Laura is also portrayed as very pathetic. She's chasing after Jacob in her hospital gown. She's texting him repeatedly without a response. She's weeping constantly, hugging the Amazon delivery guy because she's so lonely. While Laura is sinking into depression and eating a lot of pie, she starts to get the feeling that there's something in her house. And this movie is billed as a horror, but I don't think that necessarily fits. I think there are really only 2 scenes that kind of fulfill the requirements of the horror genre. And this scene of Laura investigating a spooky noise during a thunderstorm is one of them, but the only real tension comes from the score. But this is the scene where she meets the monster.
What's up?
When she passes out, the monster apparently carries her to the couch and makes her a cup of tea. It's very sweet.
I wasn't sure what kind of tea you drink. Hope green's all right.
He does tell her that the house belongs to him now and she needs to get out.
I think we both take the night. Rest. Regroup. Then tomorrow you get up, you have your coffee, you pack your shit up, and get out!
However, out of pity, because she is just openly sobbing, he gives her 2 weeks before she either leaves the house or he kills her. They continue to interact over the next few days like a couple of quirky, mismatched roommates. All their interactions are just low-key and kind of cute. You know, the monster changes the thermostat. He aggressively eats waffles. He unplugs the vacuum. He does indicate that she should remember him, so I guess he is the monster from her childhood.
1994, Tropical Storm Barrel. Your mom was out late. Shocker, you freaked out, saw me under the bed. No?
We do see one incident from her childhood where she was in a closet with a boy named Benji, and he tried to kiss her, and then she didn't want to kiss him, so he pushed her, and he called her a temptress. And then the monster kind of roughs him up and throws him out into the hallway. I was kind of worried going into this, knowing it was a rom-com, that the monster was going to turn out to be some sort of ancient or ageless being that terrorized her as a child and was now going to date her as a grown-up. And it was going to be kind of weird. But no, the monster mentions that he was young when she was young.
What about 01? You got in trouble, opened the closet, we bumped into each other. My beard was a little patchier in my tween years.
So it's not weird. It is a perfectly okay human-monster relationship dynamic. She asks shockingly few questions about, how do monsters exist? How does this work? I would have so many questions. Laura auditions for her douchey ex's musical, and it goes poorly.
Hi. Hello, lovely to meet. You put up your feet. Do you feel the heat?
Jacob offers her the understudy role for the lead, mostly just out of pity and for appearances, so he doesn't look like such a bad guy, but he fully expects her not to take it.
I'll do it.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Meanwhile, Laura and the monster have a bunch of scenes where they grow closer together. And to me, this is where the allegory kind of falls apart. Does your inner rage beautifully recite Shakespeare?
Are you a god? Would you create me new? Transform me then, into your power I'll yield.
Does your inner rage cry at old movies?
You don't make movies like this anymore. Every time it makes me cry.
Like, yes, there are some scenes where the monster helps her unleash some emotion by smashing plates or throwing food, but he's really more manic pixie dream monster than inner rage demon. We get a classic rom-com girl making an entrance down the stairs while dressed as the Bride of Frankenstein moment. Things shift a little bit at a cast Halloween party. Jacob has been flirting with Jackie, who is the very beautiful, much more famous actress who got the lead role in the musical, the role that Laura should have had. Laura is absolutely miserable. And then the monster shows up. And if the monster is real, like, it makes sense that he could go out on Halloween because nobody would notice a guy that looks like a monster when everyone is in costume. But I watched this scene so closely to see if anybody acknowledges him or even steps around him, and I did not see anything. I did not see him impact the environment in any way. There's a scene where he and Laura dance. But like, what is actually happening here? I guess she could be dancing by herself, but that would be really weird. However, if she is removed enough from reality in this moment to be doing that, then I think that they need to show the audience that she is dancing by herself like a crazy person. And within the broader allegory, what does this represent? Because falling in love with your inner rage doesn't seem like it should be sweet and gentle and charming, which is what this is. We do get a hint of something darker when Laura follows Jacob and she sees him hooking up with someone, presumably Jackie, and the monster decides to get revenge on Laura's behalf. The lights flicker, which must be real because we can see Jacob reacting to it, and then he hears a noise and he follows it, and then a trapdoor opens up underneath him and he falls and breaks his arm. The injury is very real. And theoretically, of course, it could have just been Laura pulling the trapdoor lever and imagining the monster, but like, I don't think she has power over electricity. Rather than just rage, sometimes the monster seems to be the voice of inner reason. You know, serving up a dose of reality and tough love when Laura seems to be in denial.
I'm taking it all away from you just to avoid facing you? That's not okay.
But it is
That's
okay.
not okay.
It has to be okay.
It doesn't have to be okay.
It has to be okay.
It doesn't have to be
Yes,
okay.
it does.
No,
Yes,
it doesn't. It's not okay.
Yes, Laura and the monster have sex, and it's very passionate and animalistic, but I keep looking at the monster's nails, which look very sharp and dirty. Can a metaphor give you a UTI? This beast honestly doesn't seem like a monster. He just seems kind of like a bro. Just like a regular guy with maybe some sort of hormonal and glandular issue.
You don't sing, I'm gonna sing.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been so many places in my life and time.
I feel like he just needs a little bit more gravitas. Like Vincent from the 90s Beauty and the Beast crime procedural TV series. Let's get Ron Perlman in here.
I'll never forget you. But I must forget the dream of being part of you.
I think some of it is the voice. I feel like the monster should have a smooth, rich baritone. And this guy just kind of sounds like the voice at the other end of the line when you have to call Papa John's to place your order for delivery because the website's not working for some reason. I love when she's doodling monster in her notebook during rehearsals. Like, since this is an allegory, what is she actually drawing? She's like, I love me! There are some side characters who get interesting plot beats that are not entirely fleshed out. Like, Jackie is supposed to be a villain, you know, the evil temptress who steals Laura's man and her part. She's beautiful and successful, but I feel kind of bad for her because she doesn't know all of this backstory. She just showed up. And she's happy to be here. And then when somebody fills her in on like the breakup and Laura's cancer, she feels really guilty about it.
Yeah, and you should probably also know that Jacob wrote Lori for Laura. He wrote them.
Later, Jackie comes to talk to Laura and tells her that, yeah, Jacob was being flirty with her, but he's basically her boss, so she just kind of played along. Like, this isn't a good situation for her either. The other side character is Maisie, Laura's friend who kind of sucks. And Laura does call her out later in the movie.
Shitty friend?
A shitty friend.
After everything I've done for you, that's how you talk to me?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you so much, seriously, for picking me up from the hospital and for doing the bare minimum always. Thank you so much.
And that's a really interesting situation, but for an entirely different movie where we get to see more about that relationship. Because I feel like a lot of us have probably had a friend like that. Someone who relies on you very heavily and who expects a lot of kindness and support and favors while giving back absolutely nothing. And that type of person gets very exhausting after a while.
Sorry, do you have any other friends? Any family? A boyfriend? Don't push it, Laura.
But we don't really see enough of Laura and Maisie's dynamic to know if that's even potentially the case here. Like, I guess it is possible that Laura is always asking Maisie for stuff and that Maisie is just really burnt out, but we don't really know. But it is clear in the context of this movie that Maisie is supposed to be terrible. Jacob is getting really demeaning towards Jackie during one of the rehearsals, and Laura snaps.
Actually, no, it's not gonna work for me. I wanna talk about it right now.
At first, I was happy that she was standing up to him, but then the longer that it went on, her little monologue kind of just gave me secondhand embarrassment.
I'm hungry, Laura. Can you cook me some pasta? Would you mind? Because I'm sitting on the piano all day.
She does confront Jacob after the rehearsal, and it's embarrassing in a whole new way.
And I still love you. And I wish I didn't. How did you stop loving me?
No, this man is not worth it. Have some self-respect. So she has sex with her ex. Oh God, that rhymed. But he still tells her that she's out of the show.
You can't be in the show. You're a liability.
And because of this, she's late to her date with Monster. That's what they call him. He doesn't have a name. They just call him Monster. Like he's an energy drink. She manages to enter the monster's lair through her closet, and it's full of like Beanie Babies and random knickknacks. And I assume that this is stuff that maybe the monster has stolen from her house over the years. I don't know. Again, we get no monster lore. Also, how do these items work in the allegory? Are these representative of maybe old memories that Laura lost or like repressed somewhere deep, deep down in her brain? Again, we don't know. Anyway, they fight. Monster's not even really that upset about the cheating.
No, that's...
He doesn't love you.
Don't say that. That's not true.
It is true. He doesn't love you the way you deserve to be loved.
Oh, then maybe he's not upset because, like, I guess maybe they weren't exclusive, you know? If it was me, I would want exclusivity if I was sleeping with the monster that lived in my closet, but... you know, maybe I'm just old-fashioned. It's because he's not a real romantic interest. He is a manifestation of her subconscious. But even as a manifestation, particularly one of her inner rage, I feel like he should have been angrier.
You spent your whole life hiding in here!
I wasn't hiding. You shut me in here.
And the fight is very on the nose for the whole metaphor.
Look at yourself,
How can you
Laura.
say that to me?
Look at yourself, Laura. Look at yourself.
I am looking at myself!
So I think we do need more background about the history and the relationship between Laura and the monster, because clearly this is not the first time that she's shut him away.
Go away!
Do this again!
And in the only real flashback to her childhood that we saw, the monster came out when a boy was upsetting her. So there's some kind of connection there. According to a Reddit AMA with the creator, they cut about 20 minutes of footage that included additional explanation of the history between Laura and the monster. They felt it was unnecessary and bogged the movie down. But I think it really is necessary, because on one hand, the monster could represent her inner self-worth and her self-confidence. But if you squint, the monster could also represent an urge that Laura has that when boys hurt her emotionally, she wants to hurt them physically.
Why did you have to hurt him like that?
Because he hurt you.
So she's been repressing that urge and viewing that and her anger and any other strong emotion as a monster inside of her that needs to be locked away. But if she has that penchant for violence, I think it is really important to be setting that up. Things do start looking up for Laura. The doctor tells her that all of her tests came back clear and she's cancer-free. But Laura just kind of looks like dead inside.
Call somebody. Go celebrate. Hit the town. Eat a jelly bean. Want a jelly bean? You take a hand.
Doctor shouldn't just have, like, an open thing of jelly beans in his office like that. I would never eat doctor's office jelly beans. If you would eat doctor's office loose jelly beans, tell me in the comments below. Jackie turns out to be a girl's girl by ditching the show on opening night, so Laura just kind of shows up to perform the role as the understudy, and there's nothing the production crew can really do about it. It also turns out that Jackie never hooked up with Jacob. The woman that we saw at the Halloween party was Maisie, the terrible best friend. And we already knew that she sucked, so it's not really much of a loss. But wow, Laura is not handling it well. The score now has sort of a building tension, so we're leading up to the second part of this movie with horror elements.
Copy. Okay, that is a go for places, go for places.
We get a weird juxtaposition of two scenes in the musical, and Laura seems to be hitting her marks with a pained expression on her face the whole time, and I literally cannot tell if she's doing a good job or not. Jacob is hunting her down during intermission, and we see her snap a yardstick in half with her bare hands. Jacob seems to think that she's doing a terrible job, but I don't know how reliable of a source he is.
You're doing a completely different show than what I've been rehearsing for the past 6 weeks. You are destroying everything!
Sometimes during this movie, I find myself sitting there thinking, oh my god, I hate this man so much. And then I realize that this actor must be doing an amazing job because I want to stab this guy in the throat real bad.
The New York Times is here. The New York Times.
Laura also kind of wants to stab him in the throat.
I'll rip your fucking throat!
I'll rip your fucking throat out is exactly what the monster said to her at the beginning of the movie when he was threatening her not to tell anyone about him.
If you tell anyone about me, I'll rip your fucking throat out.
The curtain opens and Laura begins to perform the big musical number that was the audition piece that we've seen interwoven as a thread throughout the movie. Except, hey there, she's covered in blood.
Hi. Hello, lovely to meet.
By the way, earlier Jacob described this as a song that's from a woman about a relationship that's pushed her to the breaking point. So it's another metaphor within this movie. Now, I'm not a musical theater person, but my understanding is that you don't have the big number immediately after intermission. You want to have some sort of filler song, so that way people who are in line for the bathroom or who are still getting snacks, won't miss a whole lot. Anyway, now we get another sequence that intercuts between two different scenes. Apparently, when Jacob confronted Laura backstage, the monster showed up and slashed Jacob's throat. And now, Jacob is lying dead on the stage while Laura sings. I'm not gonna show the wound, just in case, but, it's a huge gash. And we see Laura drop the broken yardstick in the background as she finishes the song, but she wasn't holding the stick as she was performing. We saw her hands. The implication, of course, is that she cut his throat with the broken yardstick, but that does not look like the type of wound that could be caused by a thin piece of easily breakable wood. We get a title drop from the monster.
You can never lose me, Laura. I'm your monster.
Then Laura and the monster kiss, and we see that she is not covered in blood here. So this confirms that this part with the monster is all in her head. The monster killed Jacob, so there is no blood on Laura. But in reality, Laura is covered in blood. So there is no monster. As the song concludes and the audience looks on in horror, we see Laura breathing heavily, and then we hear the monster growl as her pupils dilate, and then it suddenly cuts to the end card. So you can probably see why I felt like there should be more development and history regarding Laura's relationship with the monster. If this thing inside of her literally drove her to commit a very public murder, then I feel like that escalating possibility needed to be established. We got small hints. There was Benji, and there was the trapdoor incident, and that's it. Things like a food fight or the monster yelling sometimes don't really count. Laura was portrayed as a mostly normal, kinda quirky girl this whole movie. Even her outbursts were just kind of silly and unfocused with a lot of flailing around. It's a big jump from that to murder. If the monster represented a hyper-realistic hallucination guiding Laura's rapid descent down into madness, leading her to kill her ex-boyfriend with a ruler, then I feel like that relationship should have been depicted differently. Not with doing yoga together and eating Chinese food on the couch or singing along while he plays the piano. That's not falling in love with your inner rage. That's finding peace with your inner rage and committing no murders. I will also say my one other mild criticism is that a lot of the jokes in this movie didn't really land for me. They weren't bad, but I didn't really find it actively funny, except for one joke about socks.
You ruined my life, and you've stolen all my socks!
You were never gonna do anything with those fucking socks.
Yes, I was! I needed those socks!
I think that was the funniest thing in the whole movie. And also, metaphors for rage can't steal your socks. So what did you do with your socks, Laura? Mostly, it felt like the humor was just there to help set a lighthearted tone. which a lot of rom-coms are really light on the actual com, so that is fairly typical within the genre. I like the cute but also threatening monster rom-com elements, and I like the brutal psychosis murder ending. I just feel like this movie wanted so badly to be both a horror and a super sweet rom-com that it wasn't able to fully hit either of them. Yeah, I think I just really wanted a modern indie version of the 90s Beauty and the Beast TV series. Not that awful CW thing from like 10 years ago. Ugh.